looking at.
Is this still Country Walk, Maurice?
This is still Country Walk.
Look, the cars are lined up. Going.
Or in a new 92 Olds 88 Royale.
A force of nature, erratic, deadly. And Florida was just the beginning.
It was really scary. I wouldn't do it again. Never, ever again. Lock the door, don't even board it up, and just walk out.
Tonight, we visit the scenes of destruction left by Hurricane Andrew. And we track its next moves.
This is ABC News Nightline. Substituting for Ted Koppel and reporting from Washington, Sam Donaldson.
Good evening. Now it's the Gulf Coast's turn. The city of New Orleans is in jeopardy, or so it seems at this hour, as Hurricane Andrew, the worst storm to hit Florida in 60 years, roars through the Gulf of Mexico, having swept across the southern tip of Florida earlier today. President Bush interrupted his formal campaign schedule to fly to the Miami area to inspect the devastation there. It's horrible, said the president. But even as South Florida began to add up its losses, other Americans hundreds of miles away are tonight frantically preparing for Andrew's next landfall. Let's go to the National Hurricane Center in Coral Gables, Florida, to get the latest on the hurricane's course. Hal Garrish is the forecaster on duty tonight. Hal, where is Andrew at the moment, and how large a storm is it? There's Hal.
Yeah.
Hal, are you with us?
Okay.
Can you hear me, Hal?
IFB, yeah.
Hal can't hear me.
Nothing. Okay.
All right. I think Hal is going to tell us when we can make contact. Oh, you can hear me, Hal. All right, let's go back to Hal. Here's the question. Where is Andrew at the moment, and how large a storm is it?
Andrew at the present time is located latitude 26.3 north, longitude 85.7 west. That's 365 miles southeast of New Orleans, Louisiana. It's increased in size a little bit from the size it was when it passed over South Florida. The hurricane force winds extend outward some 70 miles north of the center.
Okay. Where is it going to hit, and with what precision can you really answer that question at this hour?
Too early to focus in on that. We expect a gradual turn to the west-northwest and then northwest during the next 12 to 24 hours, impacting someplace on the north-central Gulf Coast of Mexico.
On the north-central Gulf Coast of Mexico?
That's right.
So in other words, instead
Gulf of Mexico.
Gulf of Mexico. All right. Well, there's a difference, Hal, because we've going to show at the moment, I think we have it, the splayed map that you put out earlier this afternoon, which shows the probability of Andrew hitting in New Orleans or that area. Do we have that map? There it is. Now, tell us how you make this probability, because the map we're showing at the moment, Hal, says that there's a 15% chance that it's going to hit near New Orleans to the south, a 25% chance directly toward the city of New Orleans, and a 15% chance to the north.
Okay, these probabilities are based on our errors that we've had for the last 10 years. We know precisely what our errors have been, and we are forecasting a track. Based on that track, we use our error levels for that particular area and determine what the probability is that it will not be on that track. It might be to the right or to the left, or too fast or too slow. And so these probabilities give you a very realistic feeling as to the potential for the hurricane to be in your area within a 65-mile radius of that area in the next 72 hours.
Well, in the next 72 hours, Hal, what are the factors that will determine whether this hurricane veers one way or the other?
Okay, our last run of models is beginning to show some funny business as far as the steering currents are concerned. The steering currents are fairly steady for the next 24 hours. Beyond that, the models just spray all over the place. So we'll have to see if that clarifies a little bit tomorrow in order to try to determine where to focus the landfall, if there will be a landfall. We feel there will be a landfall somewhere in that north Gulf Coast area.
You said the hurricane has intensified slightly. Is there any way to predict whether over the next 72 hours it will continue to intensify, or you're just going to have to wait and see?
The water of the Gulf of Mexico, the shelf water in particular, is very warm right now, and that would support certainly continued hurricane Category 4 strength. I wouldn't be surprised to see it fluctuate a little bit more before landfall. It could even be a little stronger than it is now.
But it's not a Category 5 storm at the moment, which is the top.
Not at the moment, and we really have difficulty predicting the extreme event.
Okay, thanks very much. It was worth getting to you, Hal Garrish, at the Coral Gables National Hurricane Center. Let's go now to New Orleans. As you heard Mr. Garrish tell us that it is not certain at all that the city of New Orleans is going to be hit, but there is a probability, if the course remains as it is at the moment, that Karen Burns, where you are, is going to be awfully wet and awfully windy in 72 hours. By the way, where in New Orleans are you?
I am on Highway I-10 going west, Sam. In fact, that's probably the one way out of this city. People here are taking very seriously what Hal has said. They turned on their televisions this morning and saw what happened in Miami, and I think they began to realize they'd better take a close look at their own area. They began this morning by stocking up on food, on water, on canned goods, on all the things you might expect, plywood and things that they need to board up their homes, gas. The gas lines were long. But they also had to do another thing. New Orleans is a little different than Miami, and it's rather striking and could be very dangerous. New Orleans is 9 feet below sea level. So people here were preparing sandbags. 22,000 sandbags were put together because they've got to actually try to blockade themselves in, to build a wall around the city to keep the floodwaters from coming in. There are levees all around the cities, and they began closing the gates today, but there are 111 gates, so they're not going to be finished with that task until tomorrow morning.
Karen, what have the authorities said so far as their recommendation toward evacuation?
They have recommended that everyone evacuate in all of the metro areas surrounding the city of New Orleans. However, they've only ordered evacuations in 4 of the sort of lower lying areas. It's expected that they'll order further evacuations tomorrow when they have a better sense of exactly where this hurricane is going. I
take it it's a little early for you to have a sense of how many people are responding to this. I mean, like many of us, I think people wait to the last moment to do something.
I think that's true. I think that concerns officials here a little bit. Some of them have said tonight, we wish that people were a little faster in getting out of here because there is just one really good route out, and that's the route here behind me. They're concerned that 1.5 million people trying to get out of here could be terrible, terrible crowding and could be very, very dangerous. So they're urging hasty evacuation, but people are kind of taking their time. The shelters aren't full yet, and as you can see, the highway behind me is not packed, and they expect a lot more of that tomorrow.
Well, of course, the hurricane is so far out in the Gulf that at the moment, I take it, there's no really visible evidence. It's not raining, it's not particularly windy.
No, it's really none of that. What it is very, very humid, and I think that, well, I guess Hal can discuss that better.
May I just say to you, in New Orleans, it's very, very humid most of the year.
Right. I can only imagine when it gets worse, damper and wetter than this. But no, it's actually quite pleasant right now. You really don't have any sense. It's not even a calm before the storm. There's just no sense of anything. The only way, I think, and the only thing that's making people here believe anything might happen to them is because of what happened in Miami, and they saw that this morning.
Well, that's right. Thank you, Karen. Karen Burns reporting from New Orleans. When the hurricane did come ashore, 25 miles south of Miami in Florida before dawn, it was frightening and it was deadly. Here are some pictures of what it was like.
We are on Biscayne Boulevard in downtown Miami. It is 2:30 in the morning, and we are told that Andrew is just about 40 miles from shore.
You can see that the wind and the rain has picked up considerably in the past couple of hours. In fact, that's why a couple of the owners decided that they would wait out the storm on board their boat.
Bob Campbell says he has no choice but to lash himself to his boat. Everything he owns is on board. Elsewhere in the Grove, the storm's progression could be tracked by following broken branches and tree limbs.
It's almost 5 minutes before 4. Tree limbs falling right and left. And this has only really been in the past 10 minutes.
4:30 a.m. WPLG Channel 10's relay tower wavers, snaps, and collapses with a frightening crash, taking the station off the air.
And even our steady photographer, Sean Phillips, could just not hold it as the wind was going crazy. The surf was very high.
Our Channel 10 news van felt as if it would be blown over. After hours of anticipation, Andrew had arrived.
You had to dodge debris, watch out for the blasts of wind and traffic lights. Most of them were out, some of them were down.
For anyone who was skeptical about whether a hurricane would hit Florida again, take a good look at this.
What are you doing out here? Well, we used to live upstairs, and so we just stayed here and thought we'd ride it out.
The advice for now, stay put. Whether you're with a relative or friend, staying in a shelter, or staying in your own home. First of all, authorities say there are just too many power outages to make traveling safe.
8 known deaths caused directly by the storm. They are unclear of how, but some of them people killed by flying debris, one electrocution, that sort of thing. In addition to that, there are 6 natural deaths that they do not know yet if it's storm-related or not.
People started to show up here late Sunday afternoon, coming in 2s and 3s, when it became clear what kind of a storm Andrew was really going to be. Even though anyone can come to the West Palm Beach Auditorium, this shelter is really set aside for people with special medical needs.
I think they're a little surprised. You know, they're sitting in their home all night, boarded up, and all of a sudden they come out and everything's gone. You know, everything, trees that have been up for 15, 20 years are toppled over. Things they've seen since they moved into the neighborhood are gone now. You know, it's just like every day it changes, you know, through construction. Today it changed through destruction.
When we come back, the week of Andrew's hit and run on Florida, when residents counted their losses and their blessings.
This is ABC News Nightline, brought to you by Charles Schwab.